So currently, I'm collaborating at the new Jacobs Medical Center at UC San Diego in all 250 rooms. We're going to gather data to see how nature's imagery can help patients heal by giving them the power to choose where in the world would you love to go to be healed. Flowers, ocean, desert, flowers, underwater. I'm hoping for positive health outcomes to see if we can lower blood pressure, heart and respiration rates, reducing anxiety and addiction to painkillers, better sleep, and shorter hospital stays. It'll probably also be good for the caregivers as well. So I hope my visual storytelling will inspire young people especially to become explorers and inventors in their own backyards, opening their hearts to fall in love with nature, to protect what we love, and to celebrate life. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tony Mulligan. Boy, I hate doing it that
One sec, sorry.
So, it's definitely been a really fun year with the AAAS-Lemelson Invention Ambassadors. Thank you very much. It's been quite a learning experience. Um, so, I like to make things, physical things. I'm a mechanical engineer. Um, and so I grew up in a family that made model airplanes and model boats, and it turned out that that was perfect for the rest of my life, and so I just kind of stuck with that. So today I want to tell you about this is my most recent project, which it's actually gotten to be a fairly sizable project. It incorporates all the things that I like to do. A lot of math, a lot of materials, a lot of travel, and a lot of meeting interesting, cool people. So it's a water rescue robot. Um, it's called Emily, and I thought I would just jump right um, into what it is. It's basically like a yeah, yeah, sure. So as you can see, it's a miniature jet ski. So it's got a little ceramic nanocarbon composite pump. Um, it's used in 17, 18 countries around the world. And it started with a collaboration with Baywatch, the lifeguard guys down in Los Angeles. Um, so it's really lightweight. It's super strong. So when you're a robot and you're out there in the ocean, you can't see whether you're going to drive over a log or a rock. So we make it out of Kevlar, and then we have to go in helicopters and throw it out. So they use that for rescuing. And it's originally designed to be thrown out of airplanes and off of bridges and cliffs to do things. So it took a while to get here, but we're going to show you two more quick videos that just give you sort of like the idea. So in the first video, what you saw was page down. Okay, so you saw the basics of it, and then here's an example of using it. Um, so this is in a river, and watch how it's going to bolt across this river about 150 meters in just a couple seconds. So there probably isn't any sound, but so this is heavily used now throughout the world for flash floods and for big river floods. So it'll go up to 40 miles an hour. So it doesn't care if the river's going 10 or 20 miles an hour. It just blasts right through it. And it's like Aladdin's magic rope. So it brings this rope to somebody who's in trouble on a tree, or the car is stranded, super, super fast. So the way the technology is, it's a lot of it comes from here. It's an electric motor. So we saw a lot of that here in this compound. Lithium batteries. wireless radio in controlling all of that power. The next slide will just show, page down. I'm not used to IBM. How do I page down? Not this guy. Sorry. Up one more. Or,
If you want to go forward, hit this.
okay. Well, okay, so somehow I'm missing a video. The last video was when they use it on the ocean, now on beaches like in Santa Monica or Venice Beach, they actually just put a little floaty ring and they just drive it into the ring and it stays there up to like 20-mile-an-hour winds. And so in the beginning, the whole purpose of this was to go and rescue somebody who's in trouble because the rip current had pulled them off and out into the ocean. But now it's turned into this thing that they actually, in Los Angeles now, they don't talk about how many people they rescue, but they talk about how many rescue events they completely avoid. And that number turns out to be thousands now when they add up on all the holidays. So they use the boat to move people and adjust people's when they're in a dangerous place. So they actually swim before the danger starts because the lifeguards can see when the current's going to happen or when the problem's going to happen. And so there the lifeguards like to talk about all the rescues that they avoid from happening. And that number is much bigger, so they're very proactive. So we do travel around the world to beaches all over the world, and we still see in some places they're still thinking about as soon as somebody gets in trouble, then the call comes and they go to rescue that person. So on both sides. So that's what the technology does. Anywhere that there's water. So this could be the creek in a backyard. So this could be a tsunami in Indonesia during after a big earthquake or another event, or this can be in dangerous hurricane situations, or this can be in crisis like the Syrian refugee crisis coming across from Turkey to Greece, or from the Mid-Atlantic, or to the Mediterranean to Italy. So how did we get there? For the younger ones of those of you who might want to hopefully become an inventor and think about it, our goal was how can we make something that's super simple for a fireman or a lifeguard or somebody with almost no training to be able to use and operate. It's just got to be super simple and literally something that you can learn to drive in seconds. Kind of like throwing a rope. A rope is pretty simple. The problem is you just can't throw it that far. I wish I was more computer functional. So, why aren't we getting like a... Okay, so there's a lot of design issues. One, how do you make it strong and safe? So there's like 300 amps of electrical power, and this is on a robot for the ocean. So you don't want to electrocute your victims or those you're rescuing. You want to be able to drop it off. A lot of times the only way they can see somebody is they're on top of a bridge or they're on a cliff, or in some cases they actually have to use a helicopter, so it's got to be strong. Some places there might be a 20 or 30 foot wave that could collapse on top of this, and so it's like it's 30 feet underwater, so there's huge hydraulic pressures that you have to learn how to design for. Boy, I did it again. It's not this button here.
Let me get out of here.
Oh.
Sorry, guys. Gotta figure that out. I don't know how to use this computer. I think it might just be best to just continue.
Okay. Corrosion, salt water is always corroding the thing, power, and it's got to work all the time. So to sort of summarize, the invention date, the idea where we had that aha moment like, hey, we could do this, was in 2010. So I remember about a month later, we had the first prototype, and we ran it for a lifeguard. He was like, "Oh, let's go rescue somebody right now about 100 yards away that's in trouble." And the lawyer advice was, "No, don't do that until you get this thing really worked out in case you hurt someone." But it basically, there's a whole bunch of issues that are hidden underneath that to the outside world doesn't really think about. And it took about 4 years to work those all out. So mostly having to do with corrosion. So once the electronics are exposed to salt water, what happens 5 months later, 6 months later. But by around the end of 2013, we had our pre-production models ready to go. We had our first factory set up, and we started cranking these out. In 2014 was our first real production order. It was a big order. We were producing several boats a week, like I think 7 boats a week for Indonesia for tsunami response. And now we produced about 300 boats since that time that are operating in, I think, 17 different countries. So this is just a nice still picture of what it looks like. It's got a little hand controller. You just turn it left and right, and you squeeze the trigger. If you drop it in the water, you get another one. They're about $100, so it's not really a big deal. It has a little camera with a video feed for thermal and night. So for people that are doing flash flood rescues or flooding rescues, it pops, to your iPhone. It just runs off a little app. That's really handy for rescue guys in Texas. So to give you an example, they lost a fireman 2 years ago who was rescuing a homeless person in the trees, they thought, but it turned out to be a mannequin and a bunch of clothes that was washed by a flood from a clothing store. And so the idea with the camera and being able to see is the fireman can look across on the other side of the flooded lake or the river to make sure that they're actually rescuing or risking their lives to rescue a person and not a mannequin, which was terribly unfortunate. And then a reel. So when most places use this reel, so there's been rescues that have been as far as 2 kilometers away from the shore. So they'll drive the boat out with a reel, and then the people can grab on, and then a rope team can pull them back. Some examples. This is an image from on the island of Lesbos, Greece. About 3 miles across is Turkey, where Syrian refugees have been coming across in these rafts that are completely fake. They're very dangerous. People drown in these all the time. So we went over with a team from Los Angeles Fire Department, from Swiftwater Rescue locally in Arizona, and Professor Robin from Texas A&M. Took us 6-7 days to convince the local Red Cross and the Hellenic Coast Guard that this was something they should try. And then literally the last 2 days, they allowed the Los Angeles County lifeguard guy and the other guy get embedded. And in the last 3 days that we were there, they were able to help almost 300 people altogether. So it was an immediate success, and they still use those there. Fortunately, there isn't a lot of traffic there going on right now. So where do we see this going? It's definitely for tsunami response. So there's something like 900 trained operators in Indonesia now. We're moving into Vietnam and Cambodia and Thailand. It's also this new version over the last year for Swiftwater Rescue is getting popular anywhere that has floods. So we just recently were in Saudi Arabia, where we also have a new version that has sonar, so we can look underground. So we were helping look for a young lady that had fallen into a water processing canal. And we were also in Amsterdam just a few weeks ago, and we helped the fire chief. So Amsterdam is all these canals, and their fire department has literally 200 divers, but 5 years ago they had lost a boat was run over by one of the barges, and they had never been able to find it. So they actually, in a very strange scenario, running our sonar system, they found it in less than half an hour. And so they're now all these port cities are very interested in this. So there's a lot of important things that they have to worry about because they have to control their cities from being flooded. So they have floodgates, they have all these dike monitoring issues. So now they're starting to look at this technology as a really low-cost, simple way to do that. Because you can just walk down the sidewalk in the streets of Rotterdam or Amsterdam and throw it in on a bridge where they have the gates that control the canals. Right now, when they do that with divers, they have this problem of ships are coming through, barges are coming through like every couple minutes. It's like Broadway in New York. So that's what we're seeing is everywhere that there's water, there's a value for this. We're also with this new system. We can map out, almost anybody with just a few hours training can map out what's on the creek by their house or in the river, or if they live on the water, they can map out the lake. So it's a brave new world. And I want to acknowledge my co-inventor who helped invent this particular product on the invention side. So I tried to do fast. Any questions?